Good evening and welcome to Daily News Simplified. In today's edition, dated 14th of June 2024, we are here with you for the important articles from the three important newspapers of the day, that is the Hindu, Indian Express and Business Line. From the mains point of view, we have taken the articles based on issues of terrorism, Indian migrant workers and grey zone warfare for your perusal. From the point of view of prelims, we have taken four articles, that is with respect to the ongoing G7 summit, the issues arising out of the functioning of National Testing Agency, rubber crop and plantation and rubber board of India, and lastly we have taken an MCQ on the credit default swap mechanism. So without further delay, let us begin our session. The first article that we are taking today is in the context of the fresh infiltration. And in the past couple of days after the formation of the new union government, the state or the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir is facing fresh issues with respect to terrorism. And in the past couple of days, it has faced 4 terrorist incidents. So now, what is the syllabus mapping with respect to this part of this news? That is with respect to your GS paper 3. It includes security challenges and their management in border areas and linkage of organized crime with terrorism. And in the past, in the very recent past, in the 2023, there was a question in your GS paper 3 that was winning of hearts and minds strategy. Affected areas in the essential is a step towards the restoration of trust in population. Discuss what are the measures adopted by the government in this regard and conflict resolution in Jammu and Kashmir. So let us begin our discussion first with respect to understanding the concept of terrorism. What are the causes of terrorism, origin of terrorism in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and then we will move towards what are the recent changes and cause of recent attacks in the state, in the territory of Jammu. So what is the origin? The origin of the word terrorism is traced from the French Revolution, and immediately preceding the time of French Revolution, that was called as the Reign of Terror, right? So it originated in France in the year 1793 and 1794. So in the World War II, it was assumed that terrorism by the non-state actors, for example, Irish Republican forces, also was considered as a part of terrorism because it was conducted by non-state forces, right? So, but after the World War II, this phenomena of terrorism, which was localized in Europe, moved out of Europe into Africa and Middle East, Asia, right? And after the fall of Soviet Union and in 1990, it kind of created a global footprint. Why? Because USA, for the fall of Soviet Union, used Mujahideen forces that were stationed in Afghanistan. So after the fall of Soviet Union, the phenomena of terrorism occupied a global footprint. Now, what are the causes of terrorism? Terrorism can be classified in two types, that is terrorism from top and terrorism from bottom. Now, what is the meaning when we say that it is a terrorism from top? It means that it is sponsored directly by the state actor. For example, terrorism conducted by Pakistan in Indian territories is considered as terrorism from top because it is directly given support by the state of Pakistan. And when it comes to terrorism from bottom, when certain forces which are disenchanted by the working of a state organically get together and take a violent means, it is considered as terrorism from bottom. Now, what are the causes of terrorism? First of all, let us understand that there can be historical causes with respect to the issue of terrorism. Why? For example, Pakistan consistently says that the issue of Jammu and Kashmir is an unfinished agenda of partition, right? So even the word Pakistan, the K in Pakistan means for the territory of Kashmir, right? So Pakistan always considers that unless and until Kashmir becomes their territory, the partition has not been, the agenda of partition remains unfulfilled. And over the period, because of the water insecurities of Pakistan, the demand and need for Kashmir territory in the minds of Pakistani intelligence, Pakistani forces has increased. Then there is a issue of religion and ethnicity. See, this, when we trace it back to Europe, there was no element of religion associated with it. But as because of the radicalization that was carried out by the Americans in the context of Afghanistan, the issue of religion and ethnicity got attached to terrorism. And subsequently, the global war on terror that was fought by the Americans after the 9/11 incident, this image of religion and ethnicity has been associated with particular religions and ethnicities, right? Then there can be political factors and political factors with respect to the rise of terrorism and especially left-wing extremism. Sometimes it is said that there are political factors, the inclusion of political ideologies, violent political ideologies like Maoism, are responsible for the internal disturbances. And then there are issues with respect to, we can say the example of Manipur, that human rights violation have been a serious cause behind the infiltration and these kind of activities in the northeastern region. Then there can be example of economic causes and uneven development process. The best example that we can take with respect to this is the LTTE. Similarly, here even in ethnicity, we can take the example of LTTE, right? And then economic causes, the Chechen region of Russia. Here, because of uneven development and economic causes, this area reverted back to the terrorism. And then lastly, but most importantly, the external state support is considered as an essential element of terrorism, because non-state actors cannot survive right now without the aid and support of state-based actors. For example, if we talk about the terrorist activities that are carried out in Gaza and Palestine also, there is an element of state actors actively or passively supporting the movement. For example, Iran is also actively supporting the movement in Gaza, right? So now let us discuss a brief background and history of militancy in Kashmir. In 1940s, Pakistan, immediately after the partition, Pakistan attacked India with a view to capture Jammu and Kashmir. Why? Because it considered that all the Muslim majority states or regions should become a part of Pakistan. So three territories which had Muslim majority but were ruled by the Hindu kings were considered to be a part of Pakistan from the Pakistani mindset, right? So in the 1940s itself, immediately after the partition, Pakistan attacked India with the military forces. Then after a defeat in 1965 and 1971 wars and further separation of Bangladesh, that was considered as East Pakistan back then. So the defeat of Pakistan led to the decline in militancy when it comes to Pakistan. This thing further escalated after 10 years, and in the era of 1980s, there was large scale infiltration and increase in the insurgency in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Then it also led to rise of fundamentalism in Valley. There were a couple of reasons. One of them can be considered as the influx of mujahideens coming from all over the world and training in Afghanistan can also be considered. Similarly, the involvement of ISI and radicalization provided by the ISI can also be considered as one of the reasons, right? Then there was a problem with respect to Indian side as well. There were rigged elections, and then these rigged elections over there in 1980s, they kind of created a trust deficit in the minds of the locals, and then it also further led to the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits. Then we come to the 1999, and in Kargil war again, a Kargil war was from our side, that was fought by the regular army, but from Pakistani side, their ex-servicemen and servicemen hid themselves in the clothes of mujahideens, and it was considered as an infiltration. But yes, there was an element of terrorism also involved in the Kargil war. But after the Kargil war, there was a stop. There was a pause on the terrorist activities in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, when we come to the era of 2014 and 18, again there was a renewed interest by the global terrorist actors in the region of Jammu and Kashmir, right? Then global terrorist outfits, they started taking interest in Kashmir. There was a change because social media also started playing an active role in first recruitment, then training, and then carrying out of their agenda in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, right? And lastly, when we come to 2019, the revocation of Article 370. Why? Because the government considered that Article 370 has to be revoked in order to completely put a complete full stop on the terrorist activities in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and it was to a large extent successful also. This led to the decline and mobilization of terrorist activities in the state. Now, as we stand today, what do we see? That the center of terrorist activities has shifted away from the valley, and it has come where? It has come now to the area of Jammu region, right? So what are the reasons behind the increased terror activities in the Jammu region? So there is a stat that in past 1 year, that is in 2023, there have been 43 attempts or attacks in the Jammu region. Now, why is it so? Because after Article 370, Kashmir is in the firm grip of security forces. They have cut all the funding mechanisms over there in Kashmir, and subsequently terrorist activities cannot be undertaken in the region of Kashmir Valley. So that is why terror outfits are moving towards the Jammu region. And at the same time, our security mindset has not been able to imagine that these terror outfits, once we pause them over, once we stop them over in the Kashmir Valley, they will move towards the Jammu region. So this has been a blind spot in our security forces imagination, right? So we have already discussed this point, that after the abrogation of Article 370, the focus has shifted away from valley. Again, there are geographical features when it comes to the region of Jammu, that complex terrain, and again it is not so well secured because there is an international border over there, and because of weak security apparatus and security preparedness over there in the Jammu region, so terrorists are easily able to infiltrate over there in the region. And similarly, the another reason for the attacks in Jammu region is that the kind of scientific intel and human intelligence that is available over there in the Kashmir Valley with the our forces is not available in the Jammu region. And another important aspect is that in the recently conducted general elections in the Jammu region, there was a high voter turnout. There was a relatively very higher voter turnout. So what do these kind of terrorists want? They want to subvert the democratic processes, right? So that is perhaps one of the reasons that terrorist activities have increased in the region. Then what are the immediate reasons, right? There are impending general assembly elections in the Kashmir and Jammu region. In the recent landmark judgment of the Supreme Court, right, in which Supreme Court upheld the validity of abrogation of Article 370, Justice Sanjay Krishna Kauls remarked that remark to the Election Commission of India that you should conduct the general elections as soon as possible in the region, right? So the Election Commission of India was given a deadline of September 2024 to conduct the assembly elections. So assembly elections are pending, right? So what is the agenda of terrorists over there? They don't want the elections to be conducted on the right time, so that there is a difference between the general populace and the government. And then lastly, but we should not discount this thing, that pilgrimage season is also starting right now. Mata Vaishno Devi Yatra is ongoing, and just in the end of this month, Amarnath Yatra will also start. So there is a pattern in the terrorist activities that they have started targeting both the civilian as well as security forces, and at the same time they have started targeting pilgrims also, right? So these are the reasons for the revival of activities of terrorism in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now we move on to see what are the steps that we can take to deal with the issue of terrorism. So first one being better intelligence gathering. There should not be intelligence blind spots, right, in the imagination of security forces, right? So what happened after the abrogation of 370? They put their entire focus on the region of Kashmir, but Jammu emerged as a kind of blind spot in the imagination of security forces. This should not happen. We have already developed a system of NAT grid for this, but better implementation is required. Then there is a need of better training and security drills with respect to security forces, and better integration of techniques when it comes to the security forces. In this context, we also did one article with respect to integration of all the paramilitary forces in one of our past DNSs. So the people who have joined us recently, they can go back and watch that video in which we discuss the integration of all the paramilitary forces, for example, CRPF, ITBP, so on and forth, for better coordination between the security forces, right? Then there is a need of better securing the key installations, especially in the context of military bases. From the standpoint of security, again, there is a need of improved investigation and prosecution, especially by the authorities such as NIA. For example, NIA can be empowered and can be given special powers, and perhaps we can say that AFSPA can be slowly removed from the peaceful areas, but in the place of it, NIA can be given power under the NIA Act for better prosecution of people involved in the terrorist activities. Then there should be a political consensus when it comes to the issue of terrorism. For example, in Israel, they do have a bipartisan support when it comes to the issue with respect to terrorism. Then when there are two aspects, first one being security related, right? Then other is with respect to providing good governance. So that is how we say that we have to win hearts and minds. That was the question. Winning of hearts and minds is required when it comes to the issue of terrorism, right? So we have to continue developing the region, right? So in this context, good governance and development is required. That can be undertaken with the help of building confidence building measures. Various schemes like Udan and Himayat can be implemented. Better prime minister package, for the special package for the state, can be created, right? Then respect for the rule of law needs to be cultivated in the minds of individuals. And lastly, capacity building of the state as well as civil society needs to be carried out, so that civil society and state is able to draw the attention of youth away from these kind of nefarious activities and into some constructive purposes, right? With this, we bring an end to the first topic. Let us move on to the next topic, that is issue with respect to migrants. Now, this article is in the specific context of migrant laborers that go abroad. This article was this featured on the page number 10 of today's Indian Express newspaper. What was the context? The context being the death of India's migrant workforce in Kuwait. What is the syllabus mapping with respect to this article? We can say that from the standpoint of your GS paper 2, we can cover it under social justice, that is issues with respect to poor people, migrants, so on and forth. And then from your GS paper 3 point of view, we can cover this issue along with general economics, and that is issues with respect to labor. In the past 2015, because Make in India was in news back then, so the question appeared, but this was in the context of radical labor reforms. The success of Make in India program depends on the success of Skill India. So without skill India, there cannot be make in India, right? And radical labor reforms. Skill India, when coupled with labor reforms, then only we can go towards make in India. Discuss with logical arguments, right? So in this context, let us understand what are the features of migrant workers. Then we will discuss what are the reasons for vulnerability of migrant workers, and we'll see the way forward, right? Now moving on, let us see what are the features of migrant workers in India. So as per a report, there are close to 2.2 million migrant workers in the state of Kerala alone, right? Kerala is one of the states which is a very healthy contributor to FDI also because of the migrant laborers, and importantly both blue and white collar workforce is equally competent from the state of Kerala. So they are a source of foreign remittances. You can see the literature that has been provided along with the video, in which you'll get the details about the foreign remittances that is there in the context of the migrant workforce. So another feature with respect to the features of migrant workforce is there that they are essential for improving the social mobility of the lower and poor and lower middle income class. Then one of the features that is associated with respect to the migrant workers is that they are the best tool with respect to harnessing the demographic dividend of the country. How they directly address the issues with respect to unemployment in India. Then once they go outside, they engage in high productivity jobs and learn further skills over there when they work in the construction, let us say construction industries. Then another feature with respect to India's migrants are that both blue collar employment is considered to be, for example, jobs performed by the semi-skilled workforce, for example masons, fitters, welders. These are called as blue collar employment. Similarly, white collar employees are someone who can be someone who is a Microsoft engineer, right? Some MBA person who has gone outside to earn, right? So next is that they also increase India's soft power in the world, and India emerges as a global hub for the skilled workforce. This is another feature with respect to migrant workers. Now we come and discuss what are the reasons for the vulnerability of migrant workers, and this is again in the special context of the blue collar employees, because white collar employees are generally they go on the work visas, and then their employment is very well regulated and comes generally under the organized sector employment. But here in this context of blue collar employees, their employment generally comes in the unorganized sector, and that is where all the problems emanate. Again, we have the issues with respect to this is that we have a general data with respect to migration, right? For example, a general survey was conducted in which it was seen that there are close to 2.2 million expats working in the Middle East from the state of Kerala, but we do not have kind of official data on this. Then again, the second issue is that the white collar employees, they generally are engaged in organized sector employment, for example software industry, scientific jobs, teaching, research, so on and forth. But blue collar employees, especially because of the construction activities that are undergoing in the Middle East region, right, so they are generally employed in the unorganized sectors, and that leads to the further exploitation. Third aspect, and one of the very important aspect that has been continuously highlighted, is that there is a lack of regulation on the various agencies. See, what these agents or agencies do is that they'll offer certain kind of job opportunities to the semi-skilled laborers, and then once they go over there in the Middle East, for example, they go to Kuwait, they kind of snatch away their passports, and the laborers have to keep working for the agents or the contractors without some kind of having some kind of social security present over there. Again, another feature with respect to this is that for white collar employees, and especially in the context of Western countries, the Western countries provide a kind of permanent residency or temporary residency, right? But here in the Middle East, the problem is that because they do not provide any kind of permanent residency, these laborers, they have the option of earning over there in the Middle East, but they cannot decide on settling over there. So again, this becomes a kind of weak point. Another aspect is lack of social security, which is available in the case of white collar employees, but is absent in the case of blue collar employees. And again, the issues with respect to nature of employment. The nature of employment again is temporary, based on project to project basis, and generally it is in the construction sector, for example, development of metros, high rise building, so on and forth. So this becomes a kind of dangerous and insecure kind of employment. So again, this nature, the very nature of employment becomes risky. Now, what can be the way forward? What can the government do to address this issue? The first step can be establishment of a national level database. Taking cognizance of the problem is perhaps it is considered as one of the first step towards its addressal, right? So first thing first, we need to have a national level database with respect to what are the how many what is the number of people who are migrating, where they are migrating, what is the purpose, do they have a permit over there to work or not, so on and forth. Again, at the same time, database should also be strengthened when it comes to these agencies or hiring agents. Only officially recognized and licensed agents should be allowed to continue with the recruitment, right? Then we can go for bilateral social security agreements with the Middle Eastern countries, so that they also should at least get some kind of social security with the and even with the blue collar employment. We already have a Pravasi Bhartiya Bima Yojana with a corpus of with a 10 lakh coverage right now, but again its ambit is very restricted. What we need to do is that we need to increase its ambit. We also have a Madad fund that has been established by the Ministry of External Affairs for in case of any kind of disasters that could happen. But yes, the problem is that this fund kicks in only in the case of, for example, natural disasters, calamities, wars, right? For example, if there is a war ongoing in the region right next to Red Sea, and again this fund will be used for evacuation of the people, of the expats from there. But in case of disasters like, for example, this fire, there is no such fund which could help them, right? So a kind of fund needs to be established in case of man-made disasters also, apart from casualties like war, famine, so on and forth. Next is with respect to better skill mapping for training into better skills. We already have a Pravasi Kaushal Vikas Yojana. We can further implement and augment this scheme to involve many other semi-skilled employees. Again, we can move towards providing them with some kind of certificates and diploma, so that they get better quality jobs over there, so that they do not get exploited. Lastly, one of the recommendations is that there is a need of enacting the revamped Immigration Act 1983 on the lines of draft immigration bill. So this is all with respect that is there with respect to the issues arising out of migrant laborers in India. We now move to the third interesting article, that is in the context of gray zone warfare, right? Now, what is gray zone warfare? We will see what are the techniques and tactics used in the gray zone warfare. We'll see some of it we have already seen in the first article that was associated with the issue of terrorism. The rest of it we'll see right now. Now, what is the context of this news? China's gray zone warfare tactics against Taiwan have brought in the concept to the forefront. So again, in this article, it was said that China employs a kind of carrot and stick policy. There are two dominant parties in Taiwan, that is, one is DPP and another is KMT. So KMT is considered as kind of having a neutral or pro-China stand. So for this, they employ the tactics of carrots, and for the DPP, they employ the tactics of sticks. Right. So in this context, we will observe what is the concept of gray zone warfare. In the past, there have not been any direct question on the context of gray zone warfare, but there have been questions on non-state actors in 2013, and again cross-border cyber attacks in 2021, and we will later on see that cyber attacks is also one of the mechanism of carrying out gray zone warfare. So why is it called as gray zone? See, between black and white, for example, I'll take this color. If I can say that, let us say war as per me takes on the color black and peace takes the color white. Between black and white, we can say what is the color? Gray color, right? And similarly, the concept of gray zone warfare is a middle or unclear space between direct conflict, that is war, and peace in international relations, right? So when there is no direct war, but again there is also no provision for peace in the relation between two countries, it is considered as gray zone warfare. And as per Atlantic Council, they have given a very nice and comprehensive definition when it comes to the gray zone warfare. It is a multitude of activities that can be economic activities influencing the operations of the country, conducting cyber attacks on the various their belligerents, carrying out mercenary operations, assassinations, and disinformation campaigns. When these kind of activities are conducted by one country against its belligerent country, it is considered as gray zone warfare. You understood why is it called as gray zone? Because it is neither white, that is peace, and neither war, that is black. It comes in between them. What is the objective behind conducting the gray zone warfare? The objective is designed, this gray zone warfare, suppose these are the two countries A and B, or say that is, this is mainland China and this is Taiwan. So what will China do? China will say to its air force that you go over there and run your sorties through Taiwanese airspace. It will say to its navy that yes, you go over there in the Taiwanese waters and conduct reclamations over there. So these kind of activities are considered as gray zone warfare because they are kind of infringement upon the rights of the weaker country, and similarly they are also kind of provocative, and provocation is actually the intent behind carrying out of gray zone warfare, because they are designed to bait the other party. These kind of actions, that violation of airspace of Taiwan, what is the intent behind this? They want to bait Taiwan into acting. And if the Taiwanese take the bait, they'll say to its air force that again you do the counter, and once they do the counter, it leads to escalation and China will get the legitimacy for its full frontal war. That is the reason behind gray zone warfare. Now, what is the background of this gray zone warfare tactics? These are not new tactics. They emerged in the era of Cold War. After the Second World War, the world was pushed towards the era of Cold War, which followed till the disintegration of USSR. So, both countries or both camps were divided based on first ideology and second based on the economic principles, and both contained the one of the most powerful weapons of the world, that is nuclear bomb. Even with USA camp, and nuclear weapon with the Soviet Union, right? So there is a nuclear doctrine that is called as MAD, right? Mutually assured destruction. This doctrine says that the availability of nuclear weapons keeps both the states restrictive in going towards the full frontal war, but at the same time they will conduct these kind of intelligence based operations, subversive activities, so on and forth. And that is where, because USA and Russia couldn't directly go to war with each other, they engaged in gray zone warfare over with each other, right? So this is the ideological background behind the gray zone warfare techniques. Now, what are the characteristics of this gray zone warfare? So first one being ambiguity. The perpetrator keeps the ambiguity alive, right? They do not leave the direct evidences when it comes to the attacks, and it keeps an ambiguity alive in the minds of the belligerent country, that they don't become sure that this particular attack has been conducted by country X or not. Then there is an element of deniability, because there is no direct involvement when it comes to the state actors. There is always an option of deniability when it comes to the gray zone warfare, right? Then there is an element of no use of military means. For example, they do not employ military means to carry out cyber attacks. Economic warfare, dumping, right? Dumping of cheap steel in Indian market, right? So these are all non-military means which are employed by the perpetrator. Then again, another feature is that there is a gradual escalation. For example, it all begin when we talk about India China relations. Whenever our prime minister or some important minister goes to Arunachal Pradesh, immediately there is a response from the spokesman from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, right? Similarly, when it comes to the border tussle, what used to happen, that Chinese used to come in the Indian territory, right? And then they used to provoke Indian soldiers. So what was the reason behind it? The reason was to bait the Indian security forces, so that we come into the direct conflict, right? So again, another feature is with respect to this is gradual escalation, right? What are the examples? The examples being cyber warfare, right? What can you give? Can you give an example with respect to this? For example, Stuxnet attack, carried out by whom? Still we don't know. It could be US, it could be Israel. We don't know it yet, that who carried out for sure, that who carried out Stuxnet attack on the Iranian nuclear facilities. Then economic warfare can also be considered as one of the examples. Next is with respect to disinformation campaigns that are run by various countries, various powerful countries against their belligerents. For example, if in the case of Taiwan itself, what are they doing right now? Because a anti-China party is in power, they are carrying out disinformation campaigns over there in Taiwan. And then next is proxy warfare. The best example with respect to this is that proxy warfare that is carried out by Pakistan, right? Sending the terrorists in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, because they are not able to carry out full-fledged warfare, and neither there is a kind of peace in the relations. Now, how to deal with this gray zone warfare? See, it is we should not think that this gray zone warfare is important only in the context of China-Taiwan relations. This is again recently conducted Raisina dialogue, and in recently even our CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, also conducted a discussion on gray zone warfare and how to deal with these gray zone warfare techniques when it comes to India. So what is the way forward with respect to dealing with gray zone warfare is first being improved intelligence capabilities. We should invest in advanced surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities and interest gathering, intelligence gathering technologies. Then this solely the gathering of intelligence is not sufficient. There should be accurate attribution, right? Yes, that for example, you first one thing can be that we know that yes, these militants who recently conducted terrorist attacks in Raisi, right, they are from Pakistan, right? But again, accurate attribution is equally important. Knowing is not sufficient. We need to pinpoint. How can we pinpoint? By the help of cyber forensics, by carrying out signal intelligence and cross verifying it with the help of human intelligence. And then we need to present these evidences in the form of in the front of international bodies, for example in United Nations General Assembly, right? The session is going to be conducted in September, right? So we can go over there and present the evidence of these kind of terrorist activities that are being carried out in the Indian territory. Next is with respect to hybrid deterrence. First one, again, deterrence is also of various types. Hard deterrence, that is with respect to military response, and then soft deterrence, that is with respect to economic response, cyber response, and informational tools. Then again, another aspect is with respect to shared intelligence, enhancing and collecting specific intelligence with the help of allies and sharing that intelligence with the various allies. And lastly, again, one of the most important feature is, and this should be very useful in the context of India, is taking preemptive action, right? We need to take preemptive measures to disrupt and deter the gray zone activities before even they escalate, right? So again, these kind of blind spots that once the peace has been normalized in valley, that does not mean that it will continue to be normalized in the valley. We need to take a constant vigil, and it should have been in the mind frame of the policymakers and senior security officials that yes, this Jammu border is vulnerable and there could be increased number of terrorist attacks. So predictive analytics needs to be present with the higher security officials and similarly with the civil servants over there, right? And then lastly, another subcomponent of this preemptive strategy is scenario planning. See, again, this thing is important in the context of various war games, various situational games that are played in the context of security forces. Yes, that this thing can happen. Are we ready for this thing? Can this thing happen from this thing? Are we ready for this? So on and forth. So scenario planning needs to be carried out, in which various simulation scenarios are placed, and then how to deal with these scenarios need to be practiced in the form of various mock drills, so on and forth. With this, we come to an end with respect to our mains preparation. Moving on, we will see couple of articles in the context of our prelims examination. So the first article is in the context of G7 meet that is being that is ongoing in which country? It is ongoing in Italy, and our Prime Minister immediately after winning elections has also gone to Italy. What is the context of this news? In the ongoing G7 meeting in Italy, leaders have provided a loan of 50 billion to Ukraine. And where did they raise this money? From the seized assets that were seized from Russia, economic asset, financial assets of Russia that the G7 countries had seized, they are going to provide $50 billion loan to Ukraine. Now, about G7 group, it is a group of 7 most industrialized nations of the world. It is consisting of industrialized or advanced economies of the world. For example, the members are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, and USA. These are the 7 permanent members of G7, and also EU, European Council, and Secretariat both attend the meetings of G7. Now, what is the historical background with respect to G7 countries? So, there is a map here which depicts the G7 countries, that is Germany, UK, France, Canada, US, Italy, and Japan. If you add Russia, it becomes G8. Again, Russia was included in G7 and it became G8. And after the annexation of Crimea, Russia was expelled again, and again this group became G7. And this again expanded group is G20, in which Turkey, European Union, Argentina, Brazil, South Korea, Mexico, China, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Australia, India, and South Africa are included. So, what is the historical background when it comes to the G7 countries? The G7 was established as a platform for economic and financial cooperation in response to the 1973 energy crisis. The first meeting of G7 was conducted in France. The name of the city was Rambouillet. In the first meeting, only 6 countries, these 6 countries apart from Canada, participated, and later on, only in 1976, Canada joined as a 7th member of G7. And since 1977, European Union is also participating in its meetings. In 1997, again as we said, 1997, Russia was also included. Canada was included in 1976. And in 1997, Russia was included, but because of its annexation of Crimea in 2013, it was again expelled from the G7 group. What are the recent initiatives when it comes to G7 group? So they have recently taken a initiative by the name of Build Back Better World, that is B3W initiative. It is again seen as a direct counter to Belt and Road Initiative of China. Then there is a mechanism of debt relief initiative with respect to heavily indebted poor countries of the world that has been carried out by the G7 group. And then another mechanism is a consistent support for democratic governance, human rights, and rule of law worldwide. And in the same spirit, they are offering a loan of $50 billion to Ukraine. Based on the information that we gathered just now, we'll solve an MCQ. In the past, there has been a MCQ, and there have been various MCQs on various international organizations, for instance BRICS, in which question was asked and the right answer was B, that is 2 only. Let us solve the practice question in the context of G7 grouping. Its first meeting was held in 1975. Is this statement correct? Yes, the first meeting was held in France, that is in year 1975. Second, read this statement carefully because maybe let us see if it is correct or not. Build Back Better World is an initiative of this group. Yes, we just read that Build Back Better World is an initiative of this group. One second. Which has been launched to deal with challenges of climate change. Is this thing correct? No. The second part is incorrect because this group has the Build Back Better World is an initiative by G7. However, the purpose of this initiative is to counter the Belt and Road Initiative of China. Then next is Japan was the last country to join this group. Again, this information is incorrect because Canada was the last country to join this group. So how many of the above statements are correct? Only one. Moving on to the second article, that is in the context of National Testing Agency. It is in news because of the recent controversy because of the results of NEET 2024 exam that was conducted by the NTA. Now the controversy in itself is not important, only the body, that is NTA, is important for us in the context of our preparation. What is the background of National Testing Agency? It was envisaged not recently, but it was envisaged in the National Education Policy 1986, that is the program of action, and again further consolidated in the program of action of 1992, that yes, we should have a national testing agency to test the minds of the persons who are going to hold various kind of professional posts in India. However, this area could this initiative or this policy couldn't be materialized till 2017, and officially the National Testing Agency took its form in the annual budget of 2017. Now what is this type of organization? This is an autonomous agency under the Department of Higher Education in the Ministry of Education. It was established in 2017. Now, what is the governing body associated with this organization? The chairman is the Secretary of Department of Higher Education, and it is responsible for the overall policy and directions to the NTA. Right. Based on the information given below, as we can see that in past there has been a direct question on Quality Council of India. Let us try to solve a practice MCQ. Consider the following statements with reference to National Testing Agency in India. NTA is a statutory body set up by the Act of Parliament. The governing body is chaired by a secretary to the Department of Higher Education. Now you please solve this question and write the answer in the comments below. Moving on to the third topic, that is rubber plantation in India. Now what is the context of this news? The context being that after a gap of 12 years, the rubber prices have increased to up to 200 rupees per kg. That is, rubber plantation has become a little bit more remunerative. Now let us see first the features of natural rubber, and then we will see the Rubber Board of India when we solve the MCQ. Right. So what is natural rubber? Natural rubber is a polymer of isoprene. Right. And it is derived from various tree plants. The name of tree is para rubber tree or Havia brasiliensis. Right. It is an important tropical tree that is native to Amazon River Basin in South America. So obviously this plantation mechanism was brought to India in 1902 in Kerala, and Kerala became the one of the first states for which went for natural rubber plantation in India. What are the key facts associated with the production of rubber? What is the soil type? Well drained and well weathered lateritic alluvial soil with a pH of 4.5, between a pH of 4.5 and 6.5 is most feasible for the production of these trees. What is the required rainfall? At least 100 rainy days and between 150 to 300 cm rainfall is required for the tree plantation. What is the temperature range? 20 to 34 degree, and humidity of 80% is required for a well-grown rubber plant. Now, what are the properties of natural rubber? It has very high tensile strength, vibration dampening properties, and tear resistance, and that is why it becomes one of the primary choice with respect to let us say manufacturing of tires, so on and forth. And the most important producing state over here in India is Kerala, and second most important state is Tamil Nadu, then comes Tripura and Assam. And when we see worldwide, India is on the 6th rank with respect to global production of rubber, Thailand tops the production of global rubber. Now with this we also see the governing body when it comes to the rubber in India. The this thing is regulated by Rubber Board of India. It is a statutory body under Rubber Act of 1947. It comes under not under Ministry of Agriculture but under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So industries are to be kept ministries are to be kept in mind when we see the various boards, right? Where is its head office located? It is located at Kottayam in Kerala. Apart from the chairman, there are 28 other members in the board. And what is the objective behind the creation of Rubber Board of India? To promote the research, training, and provide technical advice to the growers, farmers, and further provide marketing support and incentive to the even to the workers who are migrant workers for in the fields, right? So all this all this objective, Rubber Board of India was formed in 1947. Based on the same theme, there has been a question on Tea Board of India in past, and we will solve this practice MCQ. With reference to rubber, consider the following statements. First, they grow well in tropical and humid conditions. Yes, because this tree is again native of Amazon rainforest, right? Rubber Board is a statutory body under Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare. No. Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So again statement 2 is incorrect. Tamil Nadu is the largest producer of rubber in India. No. Which state is the largest producer of rubber? That is Kerala. And again in the same article it was given that it was suggested that the plantation of rubber crop again should be carried out in more hilly states, for example in northeast, so that we become self-sufficient in the rubber production. As of now we are not self-sufficient in the natural rubber production, right? So how many of the statements given above are correct? Only one statement is correct, that is first statement. Last, we will see another MCQ based on the concept of credit default swap. What is the context of this news? That SEBI has proposed an open credit default swap market for mutual fund, right? Now we will understand the concept of credit default swap swap with the help of an example. Suppose you have a friend, right? You are Mr. X, you have a friend Mr. Y. You have given a loan, right, to your friend, but later on you discover that maybe your friend might not be able to return that loan to you, right? So now what can you do in this context? Maybe one alternative is that you go to, let us say, an agency that is Z and say that I will provide you a premium, and in case Y is not able to return the loan to me, right, you will pay me in the case of default. If Y is able to pay me, you will not have to give me my premium. And in case my friend Y defaults, you will pay me kind of payment. So the similar thing is shown in this particular diagram. Suppose you are again a credit default swap buyer, right, and you purchase a kind of bond or give loan to a particular underlying instrument or a company, right? But later on, maybe perhaps you discover that this particular company might default on the loan that they have taken or the bond that they have taken. So what will you do? You will contact a credit default swap seller, and you will take the insurance against the uh, underlying instrument, right? So in case of, if this particular thing works out and you get back your money, well and good. But in case this thing does not work out, you will get a payment, but only in the case of default. So what are the uses of this kind of credit default swap? First, that it helps for better risk management in case of various bonds. Obviously, if the premium amount is considered to be very high with respect to this particular agency, right? So if the premium amount is very high, that means the risk is very high, right? So predicting the risk is one of the feature. Second is speculation. If the premium in the context of one particular agency is very high, again, what will it indicate? It will lead to speculation that it is very risky to invest in the particular firm, right? So with this information, let us try to solve one MCQ. In the past, there have been questions. See, what the commission might do is that they'll pick up some jargonized keywords from the paper, and then they'll frame one question on it, right? For example, venture capital page, there was a question in 2014, and similarly on similar theme, there can be a question on credit default swap agreement. So let us try to solve this MCQ. Which among the following is incorrect about the credit default swap agreement? First, it is a credit derivative instrument. Yes, this is a credit derivative instrument that we just understood. Again, the instrument protects creditor from the loan default. Yes, in case there is a default, again, we can see in this diagram that in case there is a default, it protects the creditor in case of loan default. C, the buyer of the instrument pays a seller a premium in exchange of protection against the credit default. Yes, the deal is that I'll pay you premium and you provide me protection in the case of default. So it is a well understood thing. Yes, statement 3 is also correct. So now let us read the first statement. The buyer of the agreement would receive a regular return from it until the underlying asset is not defaulted. So what it is trying to say is that since I am already paying a premium on this thing, I'll get in return, I'll get some certain regular returns, right, until the underlying asset is not defaulted. So this statement is incorrect, because this agreement only kicks in the case of payment default. If there is no default, right, in the case of this company, this agreement will not kick in, and the person who has purchased this credit default swap, they will not get anything out of this particular agreement, right? So the statement D is incorrect. Rest of the things are correct. And with this, we conclude the session for today. If you have any doubt, kindly write in the comment section, and we hope